Hello, I'm doing another live stream. If anybody joins me and would like to talk, certainly don't hesitate in contacting me. That would be great. I'm going to be doing another video on the concept or claim of the existence of a God. This this one's going to go over the topic in a more somewhat scientific fashion. It relates to fine tuning as the explicit claim that's going to be done, and we'll see what they say. One point I want to make, I'll do it at the beginning because I usually do it at the end, but I'm not sure if people are actually watching my videos to the end, so I'll do it at the beginning here. I'm going through the process of building up my YouTube channel. I am attempting to activate the monetary capabilities on YouTube. That requires a minimum of 1,000 users and also, I believe, around or at minimum 1,000 hours, if not more, of actually watch time. So if you could subscribe to my channel, that would be fantastic. I would appreciate it. And of course, if you can watch the video as long as possible, that would be great too. With that said, I am going to start the video.
Imagine that you're stuck in some twisted dystopian future. There are billions of lottery balls in massive silos, and your life depends on drawing just one specific ball. And if you don't pull the one ball you need, it's game over. And you couldn't just draw it once, you'd have to pull it at least 3 times in a row. Now, if you actually drew the right one 3 times in a row, you wouldn't be sitting there thinking, wow, what luck. You'd probably be thinking, somehow, this lottery must have been rigged for me. That is what fine-tuning is. The universe feels rigged in our favor.
Okay, so that someone is giving a, I'll say simplistic, if not somewhat complete presentation of what they're actually going to be talking about, what fine tuning is about. Obviously, the concept of probability is the baseline, and the aspect of the potential of achieving something with a very limited possibility is the baseline. Excuse me.
Because the odds of getting all the right conditions for a life-permitting universe by chance are absurdly small. It's way more plausible that someone set it up just right.
Okay, so I must have stopped it there, and they're just stating the fact that probability indicates the possibility of things coming about is extremely limited. And if you actually look at how some of these probabilities are determined, there's actually question marks behind them. And I'm not going to go into it, but again, there are other people who've actually gone through the actual mathematics and stated that there's unclarity, to some extent misrepresentation of how they achieved this determination. But again, this again is this is the baseline of really the fine-tuning argument is the concept of probability. Excuse me.
Here are some of the most wild examples of fine-tuning. First of all, there's the gravitational constant. If gravity were even slightly stronger or weaker, by 1 part in 10 to the 40th power, stars wouldn't form properly, and without stars, there's no life. It's like having a billion dice and them all landing on 6. The cosmological constant. This governs the expansion of the universe. If it were just a fraction different, by 1 part in 10 to the 120th power, the universe would either collapse on itself or expand too rapidly for galaxies to form. Both scenarios equal no life. The strong nuclear force. This holds the nuclei of atoms together. If it were just 2% stronger or weaker, no stable elements would exist. The electromagnetic force. If this force were even slightly off, atoms couldn't hold together. Forget about water, carbon, or any building blocks for life.
Okay, so they're attempting to use science for validation, but not really. It's really still getting down to the concept of probability. They're indicating all these, states. If they were a little bit different, then things couldn't be what they are. Okay, yeah, so that doesn't tell me anything. That doesn't say, hey, if it's not this way, then things are not going to be this way, or not going to be the way we see it, obviously. And obviously, as this video is going to go through, the consequence is it can only be because of something. The claims being made are not scientific at all. They're just question marks about probability, and the aspect of the way things are now are because things are working a certain way. That's nature. That's just the way nature works. Let's say, is it just a surprise that nature works the way it works, or is it from some other reason behind that? No, it's just the way things work. It has no kind of, I can't think of the word I want to use, but thinking people are saying this is kind of like almost magic, or the aspect of things going to be here unless, something special happened. There's no scientific, validation in that. To say, if it's not this way, then things couldn't be the way that we see it. Because it's not that way. You can look at anything and say, if it's not this way, then this is the result of it, or perceived result of it. It doesn't clarify the aspect that this is the way things are. This is just the way nature works. This is the way things behave. The gravitational constant is the gravitational constant because that's the constant. It's what has occurred because of nature. There's no other real explanation.
Because the odds of getting all the right conditions for a life-permitting universe by chance are absurdly small. It's way more plausible that someone set it up just right.
Okay, so this is the first declaration of it had to come from somewhere, and of course, them showing like a Jesus-like character on the screen, you know exactly what they're referring to about the cause. But again, their their declaration of probability is questionable, and again, I'm not going to get into it, but there are a lot of explanations, or at least evaluations of this claim, and where there is a there is a question of the concreteness of that claim. Most of it is the claim is absolutely incorrect, the aspect that life is extremely improbable in a naturalistic fashion, which is technically that's what they're getting to. It says this cannot happen naturally. They say, okay, you're saying that this is the probability, but does that void out the probability or possibility, I should say, of it being by nature? No, the probability is still there. No, the aspect of saying it had to come from someplace, okay, you can say that. I have no problem with you saying that. I just got to ask, can you provide validation? Can you provide proof? Is there any factual evidence that you can give me that can, that can, identify the truthfulness of that claim? That's what I'm asking for. So again, as I said in all my other videos, the religious people, the theist, the apologist, I need you people to step in here, and I need you to explain to me, why this is correct. Because in the end, this is what this is concluding. It goes, this is correct. And I need to know why this is correct, because to be honest, I don't see it.
This same deal goes with the universe. It's way more likely that someone rigged it, and that points straight to design, which sure sounds a lot like God.
Okay, that's just a continuation, obviously, of the claim. And again, it's a claim without any kind of explanation. They're just saying that they have concluded that the only valid possibility is that it was from an all-powerful being. And like I said before, okay, I'll accept your claim as being a claim, but I need the proof. I need to hear your explanation of why this is, from your perspective, the only way things could have occurred.
Life demands ridiculously specific conditions. Tweaking even a small thing, like the mass of an electron or quark, and boom, no stars, no planets, no chemistry, no life, a totally dead universe. Doug the Puddle can survive any hole, but life can't without a universe that's precisely dialed in. Now,
Okay, so this is again reiterating the concept of probability. The aspects, if any little thing is any amount different, then, you know, existence would not have occurred. I don't know how they're coming to that conclusion, for one thing. The aspect that nature behaves the way that it does is just because that's the way it behaves. You know, protons attract electrons just because that's the way they work. There's enough force to go on to the fact that the electron is attracted to the proton neutron nucleus, Well, I think the proton actually has the force. I don't think neutron. I think the actual neutron. But anyways, the fact is that a little different? Maybe they're not attracted. Yeah, maybe, but it's not. It obviously works that way. Why? Nature. That's the way it works. Naturalistically, the way things just happen to operate in our existence. It's just the way things are. Now, again, stating the fact that because they work that way, it has to be because of a reason. My explanation or my proposal from scientific, scientific viewpoint or way of looking at it, it's not a proposal. It actually is what is known. Is the fact that that's the way things work naturally. It's nature. You know? Nothing at all is indicating that this is the result of a God. Nothing. Just because of the fact that something seems to be, improbable, doesn't dictate the fact that it has to be because of a God. You can assume that it is, and I have no problem with your assumptions. I'm just asking, as I stated, I would like to have proof that you can provide that's why it is. Because right now, these are all just declarations. These are not valid in a concrete fashion.
We're asking why this entire universe has the precise fundamental constants that it does. Let's not forget, the vast size of the universe isn't some pointless cosmic flex. Universes that are smaller and denser would collapse upon themselves. So no, the fact that you just can't hit the gritty on the rings of Saturn doesn't exactly crush the fine-tuning argument.
Yeah. Again, they're talking about probability here, which to me is somewhat irrelevant. The aspect is its nature. The fact that the universe expanded was because, obviously, the point that it started expanding, what is known as the Big Bang, it expanded with a certain amount of force, obviously. And that force just was enough to make sure that things expelled from everything else around it, from a center point obviously, and everything just expanded from that center point. Now again, the probability of that, well, I don't know. Don't know, and actually don't care. It's what has happened from the scientific perspective. That's what happened. The Big Bang happened, and the result is our universe. Now, concluding that that could not happen unless something made it happen, again, I'll allow you to make that claim. All I'm asking for is proof.
What's the probability that an intelligent designer created the universe, given how finely tuned it is for life? Without design, the odds of a life-permitting universe are absurdly low, like 1 in the 10 to the 41st. Again, that's because the constants of the universe could have been anything, and most possibilities make life impossible. Now, if we bring in the design hypothesis, a designer would have a reason to make the universe that supports life. And even if we're being insanely conservative and say that there's really only 1 in a billion chance that there is a designer and that they would choose a life-friendly universe, that's still way better odds than random chance. And here's where the math gets fun. Even if you start with a very low prior probability of a designer, like 1 in the 10 to the 28th, the evidence of fine-tuning raises that probability, according to Bayes' theorem, to over 99.99%. So no matter how skeptical you are at first, fine tuning boosts the odds in favor of design being the best explanation. So, in short, the design argument isn't just some random guess or God of the gaps reasoning, it's backed by solid probability, and that probability points to the idea that there is a cosmic designer, and that is what we mean when we speak of God.
That's the end of the video. And again, it's just a claim that because of the probability of life being so low, it only makes sense that it had to have come from a superhuman being. And again, it's a claim. Excuse me. It's a claim. Then they say the probability is so low, the only reasonable possibility is a God. They say that, and again, their mathematics is very questionable. You know, you can put up big numbers on a screen, whatever, and say, "Yeah, well, look at this. This is da, da, da." Yeah, but where'd you get those numbers from? That's where they should have done. If you're going to show me a probability, you're going to have to show me the explanation of how you achieve that, probability, not just state the fact that that is the probability. And again, as I stated at the beginning, a lot of people have actually evaluated these claims, and a lot of conclusion is that these statistical conclusions are not correct. They're really, coming down to people just stating a result without actually knowing the specifics of actually how that result should be generated. And I won't get into too much about it. The basis of fine tuning is probability, and the fact that probability is so low, it can only be God. I say, fine. You've got to show me that, though. You cannot just state that this is this, and because of this, this is what's got to be the result. Now, you can say it's conceptually or reasonably understandable that this can only be the conclusion, but you have to provide some sort of factual evidence behind that conclusion still. You cannot just say, I did this calculation and this has got to be the result. And again, if you know anything about scientists and the way they work is, you've got to prove to scientists that this is the way it works. You've got to provide them with the concrete evidence that this is the way it works. And to be honest with you, it hasn't been done this way. Now, again, there may be people who present themselves as scientists and say, yeah, we do believe it, and they've concluded that it's got to be true. But again, it's got to be a consensus. It can't be one or two guys saying, yeah, we agree with what they say, and, any other way is not possible. It's got to be a consensus. Basically, it's got to be, we'll say, the majority of the scientific community accepting your claim. And this claim has never been accepted by the scientific community in general. It could be accepted by maybe some scientists, but it's got to be across the board, as they say. And it's not been. So I know a lot of people are going to sit there and say, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. The probability is just so low. But again, there are determinations of probability. It's got a lot of question marks in it. The fact that something doesn't work a certain way, and the probability of it working that way or not working that way is just so high. Well, it doesn't matter with the fact that it's probability of why it works this way or why it doesn't work this way. Is that that's the way it works. It just happens to be that the aspects of what's being evaluated happens to work the way it works just because of all the things that go into it. As I mentioned before, the fact is, why is an electron attracted to a proton-neutron nucleus? Why? Talk to a physicist, they've actually got all the explanation behind that. That it just happened to be that the forces there are just strong enough that they do. And again, fine-tuning argument is, yeah, but what if it's a bit different? Doesn't matter if it's a bit different. It is the way it is. That's the way nature works. And again, the only proposed explanation from the apologists, in general, because this actually comes from apologists more than anybody else, that if all these things just don't work out exactly the way they are working now, it's because something had made them work that way. And again, there's been no validation of that claim, no explanation of that claim. There's been given a proposal that things are only working the way they work because something made them work that way. And I say, fine, show me why that is. Show me how that was concluded. Show me something concrete. So they says, yeah, I can see that, that this probability is 0. This probability is 100. Show me that. And of course, that mathematical formula, it's going to have to be extremely solid. And if you know anything about science and mathematics, you know that everything is not 100%. So I'm just telling you right now, that's almost an impossibility just because of the actual nature of science. So I'm only sticking on this one a little bit longer because a lot of people would say this is your scientific proof. It's not scientific at all. There's no presentation of investigation, of conclusions, of presentation of information, that allows you to see the conclusions that are being purported in this video. This video, all it's saying is, it's just so improbable, it's got to be a god. And I don't see that. So again, you religious people, you theist people, apologists, because you're the ones who probably would have the big speak on this, provide me with that proof that I'm asking for. If you can do, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to say that I just don't see the evidence right now at this point in time. I'm going to leave things there. And again, I want to thank you very much. If you watched to this point, that would be fantastic. That would be great. And I will say goodbye.